I'd rather just do the whole culvert under the ground, hook everything, and do about 4 spouts on it, and then pave the whole thing, and that's where your food trucks will go. Then it's not in the park and they're not on the road. They have their own place within that park system. That's what I was looking at, because the way it is, I mean, it's too dangerous.
And I believe you talked about the ditches on this side on Portage, and I do believe there are some also on McDougall. We actually have them covered, took the liberty of covering them, if that's okay, because that was also part of the whole park design. Is we were considering food trucks, traffic, people trying to park on the street here. They park too close to park, and they might go off into the ditch and stuff like that. But we have assumed that the ditches would be covered, and it would be a covered itself.
Okay, good, because I brought it up with Musqua, the engineers here, and they said it was a good concept to do that. It makes perfect sense.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think what we're, if there's no other questions for Luke and Suzanne, I think the concept is that council will give us some direction of which design to move forward with, to continue with getting this to be a shovel-ready project. And then it can be considered as part of capital planning and or any more available funding that we can locate from the territorial or federal government, or sponsorships, or et cetera, et cetera.
Good. Any more questions?
Okay.
I see none.
Thank you, Luke and Susanna. I think that's it for now.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you have any other questions, please feel free to pass them on to either Cynthia or Diane, and they will pass them on to us, and then we'll respond to these questions or these comments as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, number 3 is agenda. Agenda was reviewed. Recommendations.
I move that the agenda be adopted as presented.
I'll second that.
Questions? SAO.
I don't know if council would like to add anything to the agenda in regards to this presentation, or would like to see it go to the July agenda.
In the way of recommendation.
Recommendation and discussion, and then if you feel so inclined, you could start that discussion now and then table it to the July agenda as well.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a committee made up of a broad selection of people in the community. I think what we should wait for is what they recommend. And it'd be too late for us to start, changing decisions that the committee made. Is that correct, making that statement?
SAO.
I think conceptually their preference is number 3 with some slight modifications. So those modifications would be part of the ongoing finalization of the design. So they would continue to be involved with those final decisions.
That's true.
I would like to add the discussion for the Connie Bear project proposal to the agenda.
That was moved, you're moving it?
Addition to.
Seconder? Okay, all good?
Where are we putting it?
Hey,
Other business?
And could be other business, or, yeah, could be other business. Or administration, doesn't matter.
other business?
90?
Any other comments? I see none, moving it. All in favor? Okay, all in favor? That's unanimously.
We lost Diana. We lost Council Curl. Does she want to call in? Sorry, we lost Council Curl.
Where is she?
Saskatchewan.
No, but she, what, her,
She's
she's up
gone.
Yeah, we lost.
She's gone.
Okay, minutes. The committee service standing committee minutes of May 10th, 2022 were reviewed and adopted at regular meeting in council May 17th, 2022.
And your dad's up on YouTube, but I'll just listen to listen, okay?
Are we on director's report? Sorry, I got lost.
Okay.
Sorry, I got confused by Councilor Carroll. Are we on director's report?
No, minutes. They're good. Okay, do we need a vote on that?
Nope.
No, okay. C, visions and values. Visions, values were reviewed. Questions, comments? Okay, number 4, director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will pass it to Mrs. Calucci, the Director of Community Services.
Good evening. All right, so I'll start with the Community and Recreation Center. Before I start, a huge shout out going out to my staff. We're been working around a lot of situations lately. The renovation is ticking along nicely, and we're trying to be as flexible as we can around that. So I do have to say my staff have been really doing their best to continue to offer programming around that. And in addition to that, to all of my lifeguard and pool staff, that's a huge one. They've been coming up really big for us in the last little while, and they'll continue to over the summer. And it's a very small staff at this point, so they're doing everything that they can to make sure that our pool stays open and accessible for everybody. So I just want to make sure that, yeah, their efforts are not unnoticed. So I really do appreciate everything they're putting in. For our stats, we've definitely been busy. Pete's Gym remains busy every day, day in and day out. So it's really great to see that facility is being well used. And it still looks great after heavy usage over the last few months. So it's nice to see that the longevity of it will stay with us. We've had some staffing shortages in the pool, so our pool numbers have been affected. As we lose some staff here and there, we have had to reduce some numbers for capacity. If we only have one guard, legislated capacity has to be lower, just to make sure that everyone stays safe. So our pool numbers have definitely been affected by that, but we're trying to run with the pool open and have as many people in there as we possibly can. We've had a lot of extra stuff happening in the month of May as well. So we had ENR and Parks. Their firefighting tests were located in the curling rink. So it's a really great extra use of that facility that doesn't see a lot of use in the off season. So it was nice to have some folks in there using it. We also had we had a squash tournament run as well. So that was organized externally. So it was really great that we could support the organizer. And then we had our yoga finishing up this month as well, which was a program we hadn't been able to offer in a while in person. So it was great to see that as well. Swimming lessons will be starting up. The power outage had a little bit of an effect on us last weekend. So we were supposed to start last weekend for our first swimming lesson batch of the summer. We've had to delay that start to this week, but we'll be able to get 6 different levels of lessons too across the summer. So we're really trying to commit time to that to make sure that our swimmers are getting the chance to learn and be safe in the water. The arena, our ball hockey and lacrosse are finished up now, but they were, again, the same as last year, really successful programs, making great use of that facility that doesn't see a ton of use once the ice goes out. So we were happy to be able to facilitate that again. The John Burnside show was an absolute success across the board. It was a wonderful community event. So you saw we had almost 650 people attend the 2 shows, and that's a great turnout, I would say. So that was a really well enjoyed show put on. For the childcare center, we're running the after school program, still has full enrollment, which the spots are paid for upfront, and then the daycare is also now completely full, and we're running with a waiting list. So we'll likely see a pretty big shift come September. A lot of our kids will be graduating and heading off to junior kindergarten and kindergarten, so we'll get to see some new faces coming in. In the early part of June, we also relocated the daycare with the renovation, so it's now upstairs until the finalized space can be finished. And once that space is finished, they'll move back downstairs, and we can look at finally moving our library over. So it's really ticking along with the renovation. It's nice to see there's pretty well daily progress that's fairly visual. So it's exciting. So if I swing over to the library to bring into that, our program coordinator is definitely moving into planning mode for the move, but while still trying to provide some great programming. So in May, our circulation stats and attendance was a little lower than the previous month. But still, we're seeing good usage with the weather changing. We're seeing more people be outside, and definitely more people using the Wi-Fi outside the building. We were able to run some family literacy programs. Our Friday fun activities are a huge hit, so we'll be finishing that up. This Friday will be our last one. And we're definitely seeing our book circulation is still slightly ahead of our DVD circulation, but they're pretty close in most respects. And we're seeing higher numbers of adults than children attending the library at this point. And over the course of the summer, we'll be continuing to get ready for the move.
Let's see.
I just wanted to add a few things. With other programming that's happening and being run by community members, but using our facilities, so that the Bachelor Soccer Club is running 3 age groups twice a week. They have a new head coach. And then the youth ball program is being run twice a week. Sadly, I think the same days, but so lots of kids are going back from one to the other, but also really great turnout. I think that's the 4th or 5th year that the head coach of that program, Trevor Wetmore, has been involved, and he's really put that together. So that's the same as our ball hockey and lacrosse programs are also run by a community volunteer. And I just want to say thank you to those amazing community volunteers. And if anybody has an idea for a recreation or cultural activity that they'd like to put on, or a babysitting course or anything like that, yeah, please contact the rec center and speak to Matthew. And And we'd love to see that more community members being involved as mentors and leaders for our youth, but also for other adult community members. With the arena, I just wanted to, I know that council had asked for some information in regards to the potential to open early. And I just want to give you an update. Unfortunately, right now we have no fire suppression system in the arena. It is completely, during the end of the season, we were running on town pressure. Now we have no pressure. So we have nothing for fire suppression there. We do still have a fire alarm. So we're not running any programs out of there at the moment. And we're hoping that the service person will be down at the end of June, beginning of July. But because he hasn't been here yet, he hasn't been fully diagnosed. So we're not even sure when, what will be required for the fix. And of course, like everything else, when those parts might be available. So that's one of our barriers in regards to that. We went back and looked at the costs of opening the arena early, and we'd like, I'd say we will be standing by the, $35,000, $40,000 costs to opening both facilities early, because that's the closest we can estimate, because we have not done it. But based on the costs for other months, we're still pretty much firmly in that cost sort of realm. With the library, we will be doing a big move. So the library will probably close probably in September for a period of time. We'll be packing thousands of books, moving them over and unpacking thousands of books. So it'll be quite the feat. It'll be kind of an all hands on deck situation. With the pool, I know I sent a communication to council in regards to that. When we look at the legislation, and some people may go back to the legislation and say that our ratios are incorrect. They will say we can have more people in the pool than we're currently allowing in the pool. But that legislation is 30 years old. It no longer represents best practices. We have consulted with the Life Saving Society, and we've looked at other facilities that are running more up-to-date practices. And we have set the ratios in a way that we think is best practice. We've been running that way for a little while. I guess, last 5 years, 6 years minimum, because we've been hearing repeatedly from the territorial government that regulation will be updated. I've been hearing it since I started with the town 9 years ago, and it hasn't been updated. So we're operating our facility based on best practices and current research on aquatic safety. So those are just some other things I wanted to provide to you.
Councilor McDonald. Thank you for the great report. The numbers sound really good. I have a couple questions. So around the arena fire suppression, you said the end of June, beginning of July. Has there been any remote attempts to do any kind of remote diagnosis prior to the technician coming in to see if any of that could be predetermined?
I think we know what it is.
Yeah, they had a meeting.
Sorry. Yes, it has happened. We're feeling fairly confident that we know what the issue is.
Yeah, they had a video meeting.
But again, until he's hands-on, we won't know fully, and we don't want to commit to any confirmed solutions until we're hands-on the materials.
Thank you. Yeah, understood. I was just.
Yeah.
So in another question around the arena, $35,000 to $40,000 projected cost, does that account for projected revenue during that time period?
No, we haven't looked at the revenue because we would have to have a commitment from the users before we could confirm that revenue. I would suggest that not all users of the user groups would be as engaged in September start time, so they may not need all the regular ice time. the Hobogo, am I saying that right? Hobago, no, I don't know. The hockey, baseball, golf tournament, has run previously. With the new fees, that would certainly bring up the cost, the revenue in that situation. Curling rink, there is no revenue generation should the curling ice go in, because they don't pay anything for the curling ice. And I think the director has another comment.
So just what I calculated for an average of if everybody is attending the arena full time, the revenue would be between $9,000 and $10,000 per month. That's all these groups.
Fully engaged.
So is that just regular ice times and that would not include additional weekend tournaments, events, etc.?
Most of the months ended up having some tournament in them, so I kept that in there so I averaged out the course of the revenue over multiple months, so that it was the average between the usage, so that we would have the full usage, and then there usually ended up being a tournament in there. So one, but our fee structure has changed.
Yeah, so I guess I don't necessarily want to create a whole bunch more work for everyone, but I'm gonna ask one question that's gonna create maybe a little bit of work. More, I think, on the user group side. I'm somewhat inclined to support their request, but having said that, I don't want to support a request that isn't fully supported by the user groups. So, I mean, they all signed the letter making the request. I would like to know from the user groups exactly what level of engagement they'll have during that time if we're going to put that expenditure out. And if they're committed to doing events on those weekends. If they want us to start up that much earlier, I don't see it being to our advantage as a community to expend that amount of money and then have, I mean, public skating stuff is great on the weekends, but to have the facilities sit empty for 4 or 5 weekends, that is essentially costing us a significant amount of money. So I think if we could have that information for the mayor and council, it might make our decision a little more informed, and we can decide, yeah, it's going to be really good for the community, or it's more money than we can realistically spend for the amount of usage that it would get. Thank you.
That's you.
I also just want to just throw in just for more, is that again, having staff in the arena, particularly facility maintainers who run the Zamboni or the Olympia, will impact operations that normally would happen during that time of the year. The other issue is that our operators will be taking arenas 1 and 2 in September out of the community. Right, yeah, so they'll be out of the community for a week in order to become arena 1 and 2 operators. So we would not in fact have Olympia operators during that time. And that's a MACA School of Community Government course.
That fire suppression that's in the arena, what date is that? When was it put in?
It was new in with the renovation, so 2014-15.
Councillor McDonald.
One last question, just for clarity. So all of your arena maintainers are untrained and will all be attending this training?
One trade.
Yeah, we have one left.
Yeah, we currently only have 1 operator.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I see none, moving on. Thanks. Economic development report. Report was reviewed.
So I will provide Director Colucci an opportunity to go through that report with you or any questions.
Yeah, I can run through quickly. Any questions? So our visitor information center is now open, so a shared space with Parks Canada. We have 2 staff there working in conjunction with the visitor experience staff. So go check it out now that we're open again. We're still putting out some fairly like local marketing, trying to encourage Northwest Territories residents to come and make the trip down to Fort Smith. So you're putting things on cabin radio. And our self-guided app is in the works, so it's almost ready. Hopefully partway through the summer should be good to go. We've been focusing in on our jobs, the Jobs in Fort Smith webpage, and it was the most viewed portion of our webpage in the past month. So it was really great to see that kind of traffic. And the community gardens are now open and ready for gardening. So the plots are open, and our climate change champions kind of managing the garden and make sure that everything's going well over there. Still working on the welcome guides. Everything should be ready. The dates kind of stay the same across this process. So September 2022. We're prioritizing and working through the energy plan action items and how best to adapt them operationally. And then as you've got kind of that update on the Convert Park signage and amenities. So we're getting near the final stage for that. The Small Communities Employment Support Program. So the funding has now is now in our hands, and we have our list of applicants. So we'll be able to give them that funding shortly. I think we're hoping to do it in the next 2 weeks. So we had a lot of repeat applications from businesses in town to help support the creation of and the continuation of these new jobs. And then we had, I think, 4 new applicants. So it was great to see, and we hope that this program can continue year to year. The Youth Entrepreneur Program, this was really exciting. So it kind of stalled out for a little while, but our EDO was able to present in front of the DEA in May. So we're trying to get this rolling. It's a really exciting program that helps support our youth in the ideas of business and business development. So we're working on the next steps, and the EDO will be presenting again to the education district.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that report. Is the Economic Development Officer pursuing any funding from any additional government sources that you can report on? Again, I go back to Michael McLeod's newsletter, where all these different projects across the Northwest Territories are happening in different communities. But the report doesn't tell us anything that our Economic Development Officer is pursuing any funding for 2 different communities, according to Michael's newsletter, have secured funding for their docks, piers upgrades and stuff like that. And that's one of our problem areas here. Is there anything to report where we're looking for additional funding for the community?
Yes, Leo.
So it's not necessarily the Economic Development Officer's responsibility to find external funding. Most of those applications are dispersed around different departments depending on what kind of funding we're looking at. So, you know, the application process for infrastructure would lie with the Director of Municipal Services. Funding for Recreation and Culture Services would lie with the Director of Community Services. The Economic Development Officer might help write some of those proposals. That's not actually part of their job description. They're not the source of funding proposals. All funding proposals go through my office, either as I'm writing them or they have been written and are being proofread by myself. And really a lot of those are where we had applied, I think, for the funding that the deputy mayor is speaking about, but we didn't have a project, a shovel-ready project for that funding. We are constantly looking for external funding. One of the projects we're looking for funding for right now is the generator for the community recreation center to be able to keep it open during emergencies. Surprisingly hard to find funding for. We have a number of projects on the go that once we have them to a certain level, we will then be able to be applying on funding that does exist but is not currently open. So it would have its funding window has already closed, and that will be ready for the next batch of funding when that funding window opens. But right now, we have a number of pieces of funding that we're working with, all of our ICIP funding, which includes part of Conabera Park. We have another ICIP funding that we're waiting to hear back from the federal government for upgrades to Riverside Park. We have obviously the paving. We're looking at other funding opportunities for monitoring of the slope. And we're just working on getting all of those projects lined up so that we can apply for that funding as it becomes available to us. But again, federal funding isn't open all the time, and it really depends on what projects we have ready to go.
Deputy Mayor.
Can you give me one or two projects where we've been successful to access funding?
Certainly, we have we accessed funding to finish the Ratchet Trail, which was done last year. All of the $3.75 million or so dollars for the paving, $450,000 for Conabera Park, including the removal of the theater. The landfill, we have, I believe it's about $1.5 million that we've received funding for that upgrade, for the closing of the current cell, opening a new cell, and developing a waste transfer station. We have some greenhouse gas funding. We have climate change adaptation funding. We're just in talks with climate change adaptation funder around a couple of other potential projects. So those are a few.
Councillor Bissinger.
Yes, thank you. Just to add on to what information you're giving us and what Deputy Mayor Herron is asking. So you sign off all the funding. So, and we have corporate service, municipal, and maybe at each time you're at each meeting, and maybe at each meeting give a little update on some projects and where we're going to put an application in to get extra funding. Thank you.
Yeah, just on that boat launch, we need to get something out of there pretty soon because MLA Marcello's has already went to bat for us with the government. With the minister, we should get something in there pretty soon for probably this year. Any other comments? I see none. Moving along. Advisory boards.
Councillor Cole is your advisory board for community services.
Okay, have we lost her?
Nope, she's here now. She's on the chat.
Councillor Crowe?
There was no meeting held in May that I recall.
Okay. B, Economic Advisory Board, no minutes. Same story. Okay, number 7.
that bylaw policy?
Bylaw policy review and development. Nothing there. Okay, moving along, administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just scrolling down here. So we have two briefing notes in regards to upcoming activities or upcoming events. First, you'll see is a request to close the roads for the Canada Day Parade and the celebration. This is this typically happens every year, and as we spoke about earlier in the I think in last week, Riverside Park will be the location for the event this year. I know that there's definitely some interest amongst the community members to move to Connebear, but with the upcoming water and sewer dig on on Portage, as well as the demolition of the building beside Connebear Park, we just don't think that it's appropriate to have it there yet this year. So what we would like to see is the closure of Marine Drive from Wapiti to Mills on July 1st from 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the celebrations, and Portage Avenue in front of the RCMP detachment to McDougall, along McDougall to Mill Street and down Mill Street for the parade from 11:30 to 1.
I move that the Marine Drive from Wapiti Street to Mill Street be closed to traffic on July 1st, 2022 from 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the Canada Day celebration. Furthermore, that Portage Avenue in front of the RCMP detachment to the corner of McDougall Road, along McDougall Road from Portage Avenue to Mill Street, and Mill Street be closed for the Canada Day Parade from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I'll second.
Second, any questions? See none, all in favor? All in favor, passed. National Indigenous People Day road closure.
Thank you again, Chris. Sorry, thank you again. A request for a road closure for a celebration of National Indigenous Peoples Day. And they'll be hosting that in the green space beside the arena. And so they would like to have Rupert Avenue closed on that date, June 21st, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah, so just Rupert between Simpson and Brigham.
I move that Rupert Avenue be closed to traffic on June 21st, 2022 from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for National Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations.
I'll second that.
Any questions? I see none, all in favor?
Yes.
Number nine. Executing.
Nope.
What?
You added to your agenda.
Okay, I didn't have it in my paper, that's fine.
Connebear Park.
Connebear Park. Councilor McDonald.
I think it's probably following the lead of Deputy Mayor Aaron that we recommend that the Connebear Park Steering Committee move forward with their recommendations to approve option 3, along with the suggested changes that they have brought forward to the consultant.
Okay, got a mover and seconder. Any questions?
That was just discussion though.
Oh,
There's a motion on
Okay,
the floor.
Deputy Mayor.
Do we need a motion to support option 3?
SEO.
Yes, so you would provide us with a motion of your preferred option. Of course, you would probably want to put a caveat finalizing the conceptual design based on the feedback from the steering committee until we get the design we want. And then we would move forward with engineering drawings.
Deputy Mayor.
move that we support the steering committee with option number 3 and explore further as new information comes forward. But at this point, we should support them so they can move forward.
I'll second.
Okay, have a mover second there, any questions? Okay, so I guess I have a question. So this is basically a rolling draft, right? So you're doing that concept and you're gonna approve it. Because I've never seen, is it brought up before, and I don't know, maybe people are different about it, but I don't see that Connie Bear trap there. SEL.
So one of the projects that the Economic Development Officer is working on with the steering committee is content for the signage or for the exhibit. And one of those will be the Connie Bear trap. Not the actual Connie Bear trap, but it will be referenced as part of the display.
And to me, that's too little. I want the trap itself. Because this is international, this is worldwide, this Connie Bear trap. You know, we could play a huge role in this all over the world. It only comes from one place. This is Fort Smith, Canada. I mean, if you want to get on the world site, you gotta play ball, right? So I see this big Connie Bear trap. Where's the Connie Bear trap born in? Born in Fort Smith. You gotta go and see it. Like, there's something here that, and there was funding for it. The funding was given. It just at that point in time, it didn't roll out. There is funding for it. So it's just my feelings. I think Councilor McDonald's for you. Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, I think if this is gonna be a phased approach, perhaps that's something that we can look at as the project moves forward into, the second phase or the third phase of the project.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
How big is this trap that you're looking at? Like, is it 20 feet, 30 feet? Or,
The world's largest
you know,
Connie Bear trap.
so, I mean, the world's largest Connie Bear trap is probably 6 feet. I mean, we want something like the Hague, I suppose. Like, how big is you looking at 20 foot high or what?
No, probably looking at about 10 feet. 10 by 12 foot high. But thanks, Councilor McDonald, you just stated that it's a rolling draft, and I'll just keep on bringing it up until I learn it. Tourism, talk tourism, right? There's that big trap. Then just push that out through the world. This is the whole.
Let's get the funding best.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it'll be a big honor to the Connie Bear family. That's the thing is the thankfulness for that family giving it to the Fort Smith people. I think it would be a great great concept of that family is appreciating them and showing their father's drop off. It's a win-win all around. It's win with tourism, everything. Not only Aboriginal trap, there's a lot of non-Aboriginal trap too, and it's their trap that everyone used at the time. So I'm just really pushing on it. I know I am. So anyway, my opinion. Thanks.
Did you vote? You had a motion on the floor.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
All in favor, pass unanimously. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is there an item on your agenda for appointing the acting SAO? Or are you just skipping it?
I don't know, there doesn't seem to be nothing, there doesn't seem to be nothing on mine.
You just got the backer.
You're on your backer probably.
Okay.
There is one.
You might be on your backer, looking at your backer rather than the front page of the package.
No,
Yes, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
That's not somewhere.
not the back of the agenda.
Doesn't have the agenda.
Oh, I didn't get the agenda. I didn't get the agenda.
May I address it?
Okay, go ahead, SEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a vague thought that I might take some holidays this summer. From July 18th until, depending on how things go with the fire season, of course, until, I'm on the wrong month. Returning to work on August 15th, which is a 4-week time. Mrs. Colucci is typically the person who acts for me. I think we would just put her back as acting, and if there's a need for backup, Mr. Grenier has offered to support that because Ms. Colucci might be moving houses while I'm away, so we want to make sure she's supported to be able to do that.
Okay, so noted, I guess, Councilor McDonald.
I move that Ms. Colucci be appointed acting SAO July 18th to August 15th, 2022.
I'll second.
Okay, got a mover, seconder, any questions?
The backer stated August 5th. Is that a mistake?
I don't have the background. Those are the dates. I think it's probably the weekends.
Any questions? No questions? Okay, yeah, just looking at that, I guess my opinion again is, next year we should look at 2-week window. We'll just shut the whole town down. Everyone go and deal with your holidays or whatever. And then we'll come back and we'll get to work again. I'm one who doesn't really take holidays, right? So I just cringe when people want to take holidays, so I just want to bring that up. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
All in favor, pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, date of next meeting.
Excusing the council.
Oh, excuse councilors?
I move that Councillor Bolio, Councillor Ferguson, and Councillor Campbell be excused from tonight's meeting, Community Services Standing Committee on June 14th, 2022.
I second that.
Any questions? I see none, all in favor? All in
Yes.
favor, pass unanimously. Date of next meeting is okay. Next committee service and committee meeting will be held on July 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Adjournment recommendation.
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 8:20 p.m.
I'll second.
All in favor, see none, all in favor? Good.
Yes.
Do you want to take a break, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, take a short break.
Jay,
Do you want me to stay on the line or come back or what?
hi Diana, if you could just stay on, yeah,
Sure.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, did you want to chair this next one? Mayor Burke?
Sure. So they're gonna do the culverts in that, under the ditchings?
Yes, I was looking at it. Good.
Feel some here.
Yeah, it works for us too, right? Oh, yeah. That's okay, yeah. We are. Yes. It's not just one little part of the day. There's water there.
Oh, my day was so better than that.
Yeah, I know. That's just true.
Anyways, let's get the dishes filled up.
Traffic full, it's a classic truck, you step out the land. It's the quick kill traffic.
Money is so interesting. I understand,
I miss a waffle leg, I just felt like I'm off and off last time.
which goes specifically to open spaces and cultural centers. Do next week, so Congress probably will focus on that, because it's our tourism draw, it's our events draw, it's our.
We should.
So we'll be looking at probably about 3 million asks.
Good meeting. You got my way again. Good luck with it. See, you never take no for an answer. There's no such thing as no.
That's okay.
Okay. You got covered the silver jacket.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It would have been better if it was like, I came 20 minutes late. It worked out. It was just a little stressful. No, I'm just watching Disney movies by yourself in the water hall while I was here, hoping that Chuck would find it. It all worked out.
You don't even just put her upstairs in one of our offices, right?
It all worked out.
So what are you guys eating?
For evening,
Okay, we just had some chicks hatch. So if Zoe wants to come over and see the chicks, I think we hatched, I think we've hatched 5 now.
are you gonna try not to be birds?
No.
Kindly decline.
No, but they're cute.
They're really not.
Even have a black one.
You can make them, yeah. I'll bring it.
Anyways, that's happening.
Good evening. We'll bring the Municipal Services Standing Committee meeting to order at 8:25. And we'll call the meeting to order, 8:25. Review the agenda. The agenda was reviewed. Recommendation.
I recommend that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilor Coral. No sense asking a question on this one. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, the agenda was adopted as presented. The minutes, Municipal Service Standing Committee minutes of May 10, 2022 were reviewed and adopted at a regular meeting of council on May 17th. So we don't need a motion for that. Divisions and values, well, we just did that on the previous meeting. And the strategic plan was reviewed. SAOs, anything you want to update us on that or anything? Thank you.
With regards to the 2022 capital plan, yeah, I've been looking at sort of where we're at with that, and I'm quite pleased. We're probably with a variety of projects, from retrofitting the animal shelter to water and sewer work to upgrading Primrose lift station in the near future. Paving has been secured. You'll see there are a number of capital projects on, under administration for briefing notes. So we can move forward on some of those projects. Yeah, everybody's working hard on getting some of this infrastructure work dealt with and under control. And as a part of that, we continue to explore the asset management programs. The directors have been looking at various programs. There's some training that I'm currently on and that some of the directors will take in the fall around asset management planning. And we're working closely with a number of consultants on, prepping for the landfill project, prepping for the water infrastructure projects, working with Salt River to get ready for their tie-ins to municipal services, underground services, as a part of their development on their reserve land. So there's quite a lot going on.
Thank you for that, SAO. And with each thing we're doing, are we having a good solid plan in place prior to work commencing? Just a question.
Yeah, so each director has had their projects allocated to them, so they know what they're responsible for. Work that goes out to RFP or to tender is following our procurement processes, and we are using a project management software to set our timelines and to track our progress on all of the projects we currently have going forward.
Thank you for that, SEO. We'll now move to the direct. Oh, pardon me. Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, I just wanted to update council that this month I'll be doing the council clips for CKLB, and our topic for this month will be projects I've been working with administration to get a complete list of all of our projects, where we're at, and we'll provide a community update for the month of June.
And what time would that be on?
It's Friday. I'm not sure the exact airing date. Yeah, we're doing the interview tomorrow, and it'll air before the end, I think the last Friday of June, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, for all of you out there in councilor land, make sure you share that with everybody out there. It's something we're trying to do and get people informed of what's happening, keep people up to date. So Friday at 3, Councilor McDonald will be sharing some valuable information with you.
I was going to say, that sounds like you're on the radio.
Okay, we'll now move on to the director's report. Director Grenier.
I again would like to just say thank you to the staff that have been out there working. We do have our summer staff on strength now, so that's 3 additional labor staff. And I think that despite difficulties getting parts for equipment that's been a challenge, they're working hard. So I'll pass this over to Director Grenier.
Thank you, SAO. Mr. Mayor. I'll start my report with the Public Works Department. So we had just finished our spring cleanup. Our crews were out there picking up local citizens' garbage, and by utilizing multiple departments' resources, we were able to finish that in a week's time. Flushing has begun, so our sewer line maintenance that we do every year has begun, and that will end at the end of July. Sewer line repairs have also begun, so we're halfway through, I think, what our projects are stated for our major sewer line digs. And so far they've gone very well. We've also been digging sites for additional playground features to be installed. I think the last one will be finished today, and they'll be installed with us this week. Moving on to the waterworks. The 3rd raw pump has been removed and is being repaired, so we have 2 up and running. The backup one is out. We've managed to get it out. That'll be out there. Our pack tanks have been cleaned and then filled with this year's order, so that for treating our water, we're ready to go for the next year. We had an issue with some chlorine pumps, but that has been solved. We had some training where we sent 2 members of the department up to Yellowknife for small systems, and I'm just waiting on their reports to see how that went. The summer water line was repaired in 3 places. We had some damage over the winter. Could have been from settling or frost, but That's been repaired, and then a local contractor also caused some damage, so we're just waiting for them to finish it, and then we can turn on the summer water lines. Moving on to facility maintenance. Like SEO Cynthia mentioned, the start of the summer term positions have happened, so roadside litter pickup, public trash pickup, and cleaning the parks, mowing has all began. We've also received our new zero turn off of the capital plan, and we're expecting the tractor to come in early July. The opening of the ball diamonds in the soccer field where they're spraying lines, cutting grass, doing all the prep work there, they've been opened. Completion of the the pool auto filler rebuild, which caused that flood in February in the floor, that has been completed and now is no longer an issue or a concern. They've also, we had a guest come to the community, they're Don Burnside. I don't know if any of you attended, but I was out of town, but they had taken care of the event setup and the takedown. Of that, they've also did the setup and takedown for the American Council barbecue that I'm sure you were all there. Again, I didn't attend, I was just traveling. And then they've also been around removing all the COVID barriers and signage and stuff as we're no longer enforcing those things. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. SAO?
Just to give a few bits of more information, for the spring cleanup, we had 145 households sign up. And that's more than double our usual. We're usually somewhere between 60 and 70 households a year. There's a number of staff that will be taking another training this month, Pool Ops 1 and 2. So we currently don't have staff on hand who have both Pool Ops 1 and 2. So that's required for the operations of our pool. So we'll have 3 members from facility maintenance and 3 members from the community services department on that course, so that we can make sure that we have maximum coverage for people to problem solve around any issues with pool and hot tub. That still doesn't mean the hot tub's going to be open. And I just wanted to talk about a project that we're working on with the landfill. We this year contracted a compactor to come in and do our spring compaction after the community cleanup. And initially, we're very excited about the results, and we'll be exploring that. So what's happening is, and the director can correct me if I'm wrong, is our current means of compaction and cover is to use a bulldozer. We are getting significantly less compaction than we should. We should be compacting, 60, 70, 80%. And we're getting very little compaction, which is cutting the life of our current landfill, our current cell, in about half. So a cell that should last us 15 years at this point won't last us more than 7 or 8. So we're very excited about that project and looking to see how that goes this summer with a few times the compactor is going to come out, and we're going to evaluate that, and we may look at that as we do our landfill upgrade.
Thank you, SAO Director. Have we looked at a loader equipped with sheep foot tires on it? It's steel tires that's used for compacting. You see it quite often.
That's the compactor we brought in, yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out to the town staff for the great job you did with that massive cleanup, and to the community for their level of participation. I think it was great. The town looks awesome. So kudos to everyone. One question, I know that you're waiting on parts for your street sweeper. And I've had a few questions from different community residents around when that might happen. So if you could give us an update on when you're expecting that part and when that work may start.
Yeah, so that part's on back order. We won't be receiving it anytime soon, but I've been contacting local contractors and I'll be renting a sweeper from them to run our bobcat as soon as these parts are finished digging. So in the next day or two, by Monday, you'll see sweeping happening.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Thank you for that, Director. And again, your staff is very visible out there doing stuff, and it's good to see.
Thank you.
Okay, the next on the list is a report from the Protective Services.
Mayor, I think that at the last municipal services meeting, there was a request for the Director of Protective Services to come in and provide the report. Of course, we know he's not available at all times, and because of the amount of overtime that he does work, we don't typically ask him to come in, but he's going to be coming in periodically throughout the year, so you'll remember what he looks like. So I'll just pass that on to him.
Thank you, Director, for coming in, sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor and Councilors. It's nice to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Before I start, I would like to say a big thank you to both the town as an employer, all my coworkers, and my wonderful group of volunteers. I've had a difficult year. My family's had a difficult year, so I am only in the community half-time, and everybody has been beyond accommodating. So thank you. I'm very fortunate to work with the people I do and to have the volunteer backing that I do in both fire and ambulance. So thank you. I will go through the statistics as I present them monthly, or as Cynthia would present them monthly. So starting with fire, we had 4 calls for the month of May. That's about on par with what we would see month to month. Primarily false alarms with good intent. We rarely get false alarms that are with malicious intent. We were very busy with meetings and training over the month. It is our EMR season, so we're getting people up, trained up for EMR for the year. We now have internal capacity, which is great. So we have an EMR trainer in our department who's able to run EMR training, which is a much more flexible approach. We're able to accommodate people's schedules on the department. So I really appreciate our member for giving that training. As for ambulance statistics for the month of May, it was a slower month. We definitely didn't have as many calls as the month before, but the month before was considerably higher than average. So this month was a little lower than average. It will have given a break though to the volunteers, a much needed break, because they were very busy in the previous 2 months. When looking at bylaw, so again, a shout out and a big thank you to my bylaw officer. He's been out in the community enforcing a number of bylaws. We've been primarily focusing on the unsightly lands bylaw. So we went out last year and we issued a number of notices to residents around the unsightly lands bylaw, and then we moved on to unsightly lands orders. So over the course of the last month, primarily in early May, bylaw and the lands officer were out delivering unsightly lands orders to citizens. So there were a number of interactions, 71 recorded interactions from bylaw in early May. The graphic that I give, the graph shows that we were again quite a bit below average for ambulance calls in the month of May. But again, we were well above average over the last 4 years for the first 3 months of the year. Fire is right on average for fire calls. We are busy with a number of additional activities. So Firesmart activities were another big driver of the training and meeting events over the course of May. We were out doing live fire prescribed burns, which was a great opportunity to do some joint training with ENR fire crews. That was led by one of our fire members, which was very well attended and appreciated by our members. And it's always good to get a little bit of experience with urban wildland-based firefighting at this time of year. We have some capital projects on the go. So like the SAO was saying, we have a mini retrofit going on at the animal shelter right now, which is tied in with bylaw. So we are carrying out some much needed work on the facility there. We also have a capital purchase of a new vitals monitor for the ambulance service, which brings our older monitor up to date and actually makes it the same monitor style between both ambulances, which is much more user-friendly and easier to train for our department members. We also finished up a communications upgrade, which was started last year, which was another capital project on the books. That is all I have.
Thank you, Director, for that report. Any questions from council? Councilor McDonald?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question around the fire smarting. It was nice to see the community out with the ENR folks and the trainers to do that fire smart work. In the last couple of weeks, I've had a few community members approach me around fire smarting and some concerns that they have with areas that are in a couple of instances on commissioner's land. And so I've kind of explored a little bit, and I've reached out to the SAO and had a small discussion about who and how we could assist in cleaning up some of the fire smarting that was done a number of years ago in behind Ren Crescent was one area that we had discussed. And as I understand it, the commissioner's land is governed by the Department of Lands through the GNVT. I also understand that in the past, there was an agreement between the Departments of Lands and the town to kind of take a cooperative approach and not necessarily in funding the fire smart work, but working together to find ways or avenues to get that work done. And I'm interested to know if that's something that we can explore as a town to try and see if there are some avenues that would allow some of that work to be done. I know the budget from ENR for fire smarting for the Northwest Territories is very small. I think it's $75,000 for the whole entity. So, you know, accessing that, even if you got a piece of the pie, it's going to be a pretty small amount. But I think there is community interest out there in participating in something along those lines to try and, you know, do some of that work. Perhaps there's opportunities for harvesting some of the wood for elders or for community members, and to deal with some of the dead standing trees around the community that are on town or commissioner's land. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilor McDonald. SAO?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Councilor McDonald. As Councilor McDonald stated, the entire Firesmart budget for the NWT is $75,000. When we put our application in this year, we were in the wrong part of the pile because by the time they got to our application, they'd already allocated all the funding. So we are working on one project around, we have a community fire smart plan. One of the main outstanding projects that we've had is around the landfill. So we're working with ENR because it is commissioner's land and a local wood harvester to do some of our fire smarting in that area. So those are the kinds of creative solutions, obviously, that we need to come up with because the funding isn't there. We did spend some of our fire smart dollars this year on fire smarting our lot adjacent to the hospital and adjacent to the trail because we had a lot of, I think, high risk still standing trees there. We have also had community members come and ask if they can take the deadfall from some other parts of the community. And if people come and ask and it's an appropriate place, that will be approved internally. And I think Mr. McNabb can maybe talk about our relationship with ENR and Lands and how we can be creative around solving some of these problems, because obviously nobody's got money to do this extremely vital part of community protection.
Thank you for that, SAO. I believe Director Grenier had his hand up.
Yeah, also we're going to be doing some fire smarting internal with our own mulcher, and Bell Rock was identified this year for that, but we only have a limited window of time, so we do what we can internally as well.
Thank you for that, Director Grenier. Director McNabb.
Yeah, so we're working together, Andrew and I, definitely to find creative ways to use our allocated capital funds annually for fire smarting, part of it being looking at equipment that allows us to carry out annual fire smarting internally. Commissioner's Land, certainly working with, cell slate management, they're more than open to looking at creative opportunities. When we carried out the prescribed burns, we did it partially on Commissioner's Land, and we were given, access readily to carry out that work, so that was not an issue. When we're looking at the relationship we have now with ENR, it is going to be a matter of ENR actually managing the relationship between the timber harvester, and they're going to be the ones that are carrying out the permitting process and administering the permitting process. So we identify the land. As the SAO said, we have a community wildfire protection plan that has already identified Firesmart prescribed areas, so we will be identifying the areas that we would like done. We're going to notify ENR, and then we'll administer the permitting process.
Thank you for that, Director McNabb. Just for clarification, that's any dead trees that are around town, anywhere like on land that people can access, say like Example Hill area, is that something that would be? And would that be open to our commercial harvesters also?
Yes, so actually the permitting process that we're looking at right now is for timber harvesting permits, so that would be for commercial harvesters. But we would also look at on a case-by-case basis, depending on the area and safety, et cetera, working with individuals that have harvesting needs within the community. It doesn't have to be dead standing, and certainly identified areas of high risk would be standing live or dead coniferous trees, be that spruce or jack pine. So it doesn't have to be dead standing, but certainly dead standing near where people would be a high risk danger tree, which would be great to get rid of.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I think one of the places to look to is that on that trail that we have running to the trailer court. That trail is way too close to the bush. You have women there with their children, and you know, anytime there's a bear that you just pop out of there, it's too dense. Like that really needs to be thinned out and pushed back more. And there's live trees there, but however, safety does trump everything in my books. So that's one areas. And then when we had that big storm there, the NCPC was actually there. I'm not sure if a tree had fallen on it. It kind of goes in right beside the trail. And yeah, we need to look at that place. But if we're going to be there, I mean, you should just do the whole run. Just push it back and then thin it out and everything. Like it just, I don't know, it's just too dangerous there, I think, for people walking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. SAO?
First, I think you're just as likely to be eaten by bears as I am, maybe more so. Yeah, so, and also, NTPC or Northwest Cal, I can't remember which one of them has contracted a arborist. So you'll see a number of trees around the community with orange X's on them. Those are designated to be coming down next month.
Any further questions for our director? Mr. Mayor?
I just need you to come in the office here and pick up that application there. How many do you want? It's still waiting for you.
On that note, we'll thank the Director McNabb for that report and carry on our best wishes to the staff. And it's nice to hear that they got a brief rest period. It's nice to hear that because we know how hard they're working with you and your staff, and also with the continued support from the mayor and council for your personal issues. You can count on that for sure.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, advisory board. We're going to move on to the advisory boards. My brain just went blank because I don't remember what SDAD means. Sustainable Development.
Sustainable Development Advisory Board. So I sit on this board and I have to apologize. I've had technical issues, and in an effort to save paper, I emailed myself my speaking notes for this, and unfortunately I don't have any connectivity. So essentially we, at the last meeting, primarily what was discussed was we had a long conversation around the presentation that the town received from the NWT Power Corp when they came to talk to the mayor and council. And the advisory board was very interested and concerned about that discussion and how that would impact us going forward in the long term. And I apologize again. I did it a few days ago and I'm totally drawing a blank right now. So I will present at council next week. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor McDonald. We'll move on to the number 5, bylaw policy and development. We'll move on to number 5, bylaw policy and development. There's nothing there. We'll move on to number 6, administration. And we'll start off with A, slope monitoring program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first briefing note of the evening is in regards to an update on the slope monitoring project, which was originally a remediation design and construction plan. Of course, you've seen some of this background information in regard to the contract, which is part of the federal climate change adaptation funding. It became clear through the work of the consultants that the background work that it was probably pretty unrealistic from both a cost perspective and logistically to remediate the entire 4.5 kilometers of the slope. I think we talked about an NFL football field worth of materials. So we shifted towards developing a monitoring plan to support localized remediation and treatment as required. The focus of the monitoring plan was identified to address 3 key areas in the municipality where there's high risk infrastructure. So the raw water intake, the sewage lagoon, and the slope adjacent to the cemetery and arena. Currently, there's a large gap in the data, more than 10 years between data sets, making it pretty much impossible to determine the rate of movement of the slope and which areas might be at the highest risk of sliding. The current monitoring plan is meant to support future decision-making regarding allocating and acquiring funding for remediation purposes. It's important to note that all of the land along the slope belongs to the municipal government. Some of it is privately owned and some of it is commissioner's land, and some of it is federal land. So the data can also be used to advocate to those other levels of government and private owners to engage in remediation efforts for implementation of safety strategies on their land. Attached is the report with the proposed monitoring plan provided by the consultant Woods Environmental. With current spending on this project, we have sufficient funds remaining to implement the summer 2022 monitoring plan at a cost of $78,500. This would essentially expend all of our contract monies or our funding, external funding, and the contract with Woods as it currently stands. Council may wish to allocate additional funds to engage Woods in seeking out and developing submissions for funding. So it might be of benefit to us to have this consultant develop our funding applications and to look for other funding sources to support ongoing monitoring programs and or again localized remediation as required. We would focus, of course, at the beginning, those funds being would be focused on the ongoing monitoring as well as the implementation of the borehole investigation program, which would have specialized monitoring equipment, instruments involved. Should council wish to implement the ongoing summer monitoring program, whether or not external funding is obtained, an additional $58,000 per year would need to be added to the capital budget for this program. The actual amount would be dependent on how frequently council would like to commit to having LiDAR data obtained for analysis and comparison, because that is $25,000 per year or per data collection for LiDAR. And so this is for council consideration and direction.
Thank you for that, SAO. So the 10-year-old data collection is probably not of much use to us because it hasn't been updated through the years. We'll be starting off with a fairly new program, and that will be carried on yearly, and it will give us a base to work from and monitor it. So what you would be requesting from council is a motion to put this forward so that you can carry on and get us some relevant data there and some checkpoints where they would be setting up points to monitor, I suppose.
And just as a follow-up, Deputy Mayor, we do have LiDAR data from last summer as part of this project, as well as visual inspection of the slope from might be 2019, might be early 2020, earlier summer of 2020. I can't remember if they came up at the beginning of the pandemic or if it was the summer before, but we do have relatively new data for the visual inspections. We just between that set of data and the last set of data is more than 10 years. So as you're saying, it's not good for comparison at this point.
Thank you for that, SAO. Does council wish, or Councilor McDonald, got a hand up? Sorry about that.
No, no worries. Just one question. So the additional $58,000, would that be for this summer, or would that be, we're looking future years?
That would be correct. It would be ongoing for the ongoing monitoring program. So that would sort of be the max if we just did the monitoring program and not the volables. So that would be visual inspections and LiDAR. And again, we do not need to necessarily run the LiDAR every year. We could do it every 2 to 3 years.
So what we're looking at is a motion from council to carry this work on. Councilor Fishinger.
Yes, just to go back, you had mentioned you could also contact them to find additional funding.
So yeah, we could potentially engage them, inquire with them of engaging, sourcing other funding and preparing proposals. So the technical part of the proposals for any external funding. One of the biggest funding sources we may be able to access is the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. The minimum amount you can apply for in that funding is $1 million. And so they have minimum. This is new. Previously, the minimum amount you could apply for was $20 million. So this is considered a small project. So they require a technical report. And so this would be something we would want the consultant to prepare for us.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald.
Excuse me. So what would we be looking at in the way of costs to engage them for that? Like, would that be based on like an hourly rate, or would it be a proposal, like a set fee, or would we, I'm just not sure of the process.
I would suggest we would ask them for an hourly rate in regards to searching out, and then if they were to find an appropriate funding opportunity for us, what completion of a proposal might look like. So where they would probably give us a more fulsome proposal in regards to how many hours it would take and which people would be involved.
Thank you, SAO. Mayor Daniels.
Yeah, I'd be in favor for the 55 for this year. The other part, I'll probably leave that for the time being. what I see, if they're gonna do a proposal, looking at this whole study, they didn't really bring in too much on all this slough that's behind us, and they did not touch too much on Kaiser Canal. Now, that also has to be in the proposal, because that runs into a much bigger problem. If we're going to monitor this riverbank, we're still not dealing with the primal issue, and that is your underground water table, what is coming from the slough. We still need to address that component of it. Until we address that component, we're always gonna have this problem, because there's underground streams in there. Not only in our yard, but this runs right down the highways and everything. You've seen our highways in that. And that is one of the causes, is the JNWT is giving the money to fix the road every year, but you're still not dealing with the issue. The issue is water. Now, it runs from Fitz right to halfway to Hariver. So how do we get those to be drained? Those gotta be drained first. Then once you got a dry ground, then you can start fixing your roads. And as well as here, we don't know what's underneath the shirt from 68, what has deteriorated, right? We're sitting on a big sand pile. Like, we need to really get this Kaiser Canal and the slough really seriously looked at, because then you get into millions and millions of dollars. But if you're going to address this right, then that component has to be brought into this. If we're just going to monitor the riverbank, well, there's a bigger problem behind us, and we have to throw that into this component also. So.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Councilor McDonald?
Yeah, some good points there, Mr. Mayor. I think that primarily this is about monitoring of potential movement on the riverbank, and I think that engaging the consultant to find us some funding sources will give us an opportunity to explore some of the underlying factors that are contributing to the potential movement of the bank. So I think this is a good step one in a bigger picture project, and if we're identifying that what we need to do going forward is millions or multi-millions of dollars, I think an opportunity to have Woods provide us with the technical background and support to say that this is, we need to do A, B, and C is a really good first step. And I think continuing this program in the years to come is also really quite important, that we have to keep that data set going. Or we're going to end up in the same scenario we're in right now, where we have a break in the data, and then trying to do that going forward is going to be much more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. SAO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The mayor and I have spoken about Kaiser's Canal quite a lot, and he's passionate about how Kaiser's Canal can support ensuring infrastructure is not being damaged on a yearly basis. There are two parts to that. One, this project, this monitoring project, or this overall project did not include an evaluation of Kaiser's Canal as part of it. So that would be a separate project, which I can certainly ask them to provide me with a sense of what that kind of project might cost to evaluate Kaiser's Canal. The second part is that Kaiser's Canal and the slough behind it are not within municipal boundaries. And so we would not necessarily be the right government to address those issues. Whether it's collaboratively with Smith Landing or the GNWT and the Alberta government coming together because they have more money than us. That's definitely a bigger political discussion and advocacy role that needs to be played to make sure the right people are at the table. That's a huge, huge project for the town of Fort Smith to take on, and we're not the only stakeholders that should be at the table for that.
Thank you for that. You mentioned that there's the potential for a disaster relief fund in the millions of dollars. If we apply for that and we are successful, if we tie in the canal and some of the water that is behind us, Because a lot of our disaster, as the mayor stated, is caused by the water that's all around us. And that's what caused previous slides. And even on the way to fix some of the slides on the side there were caused by the water. And if we secure some funding and go forward on that, we can use that funding to do a more thorough study, partnering with some of the other ones. We have an opportunity to talk with the Department of Infrastructure with the GNWT here in the near future. And that is one that we could bring up, because that water that is coming out of the bush by the dump, that has never happened before. And more than likely it's beaver dams back there, and that all ties in together because it's there. So I think we should pursue, I think what we should do is carry on with the monitoring, but also try to get that, any of that disaster relief fund and get as much as we can out of it. And then carry it on with Casers can help. Just talking with some of the people that live on the highway and work on the highway, when loaded trucks go by, they can feel it. They're bouncing away back there. And I believe there was also one of the residents there that had water in his basement. That all ties in, and those are members of our community, our business community. Thank you. Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, it just with that canal, the little bit of work that we did, like that was just a Band-Aid solution to, relieve the groundwater so that those residents would have a drop in water in their places. But, we still need to look at the bigger picture of it. And when we do get into the bigger funding, then yes, I do see more players at the table, and we're going to have some players that open that door in Alberta with this, so, and we're already making a headroad into the municipality there. We do have a connection there. So there's going to be a lot of people sitting around this table, and especially with the feds. So no, that's all I wanted to say there. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor McDonald. Sorry, Councilor Bishop.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just listening, I know the community of Tuktoyaktuk is also looking for funding because of erosion into the Beaufort Sea. And just recently there was statements made on the radio that the federal government is not, if global warming continues, we're not even close to all the infrastructure damage we're going to have just within the Northwest Territories from global warming and other things, water rising and things like that. So I think now, like you said, we have to pursue, even with other communities, to get some studies done and what are we going to do when these things happen.
Thank you, Councilor Pishinger. All reports indicate so far that the Northwest Territories is experiencing climate change at a rate that exceeds just what everybody else. So I think it's something else that we can explore. Thank you.
Yeah. I move that the town of Fort Smith continue the slope monitoring program with Wood Environmental and Infrastructure Solutions for this year and years to come, I guess. In the next year.
And it be addressed in the capital budget moving forward?
Yeah, and then it'd be addressed in the capital budget moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Do we have anybody seconding that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Tuckey. Thank you, Councilor Tuckey, for seconding that. Any questions? What's the moral? Any questions? No questions? Go to vote.
Councilor Crowell?
Is that all in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Passed unanimously. We'll move on to fire hydrant relocation and replacement. And the recommendation that a that an additional 55,000 be allocated to the fire hydrant replacement budget from Canada Community Building Fund, that the relocation and replacement of fire hydrants be awarded to Precision Industries at a cost of $64,941.13. Councilor McDonald?
I will recommend that the additional $55,000 be allocated to the fire hydrant replacement budget from the Canada Community Building Fund, that the relocation and replacement of the fire hydrants be awarded to Precision Industries at a cost of $64,941.13.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Second that. Any questions? Mayor Daniels?
How many fire hydrants are we looking at replacing here?
At this time, there are 2 hydrants that are currently in people's driveways. So this year, the project is to move those hydrants out of people's driveways and to put new hydrants on.
Thank you, SAO. Any further questions?
Did we not do the work ourselves at one point in time?
SAO?
This is actually going to require new underground infrastructure, so we would not do this work ourselves.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you, SAO. No further questions. We'll move to vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Passed unanimously. Demolition of Building 61, Portage Avenue. That the tender for the demolition of the building at 61 Portage Avenue be awarded to Portsmouth Construction in the amount of $74,500.
I move that the tender for the demolition of the building at 61 Portage Avenue be awarded to Portsmouth Construction in the amount of $74,500.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Do we get a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilor Fishinger. Any questions? Councilor McDonald?
Once the tender is awarded, do we have a timeline for the completion of the work?
Once the tender's awarded, I'll be sitting down with them and we'll do a demolition meet, and that's when timeline will be stated.
Does that answer your question, Councilor McDonald? Thank you, Director. SAO?
I did not include this in the briefing note and perhaps should have, but we have 2 other buildings that need to be demolished this year. They were identified as unsightly lands. They are the old water treatment buildings, the metal building and the brick building. They are currently unbudgeted, but we will be putting a tender out and bringing that forward to you because we do need to get rid of those buildings. They are a hazard to young people in the community and are covered in graffiti.
Thank you, SAO. Councilor McDonald?
Have we done hazardous business building material assessments on those?
SAO?
Yes, we have. We do have one of the buildings. The brick building does have some asbestos tile, and we will also be treating we were using it as storage for files, so we'll be treating those file boxes as contaminated as well.
Thank you, SAO. Any further questions? No questions, we'll move to vote.
Oh, just one. When we're taking these buildings down, it would be good just to douse it first so we don't get no plume of dust up after all their old buildings, whether that be us or a contractor, I'm not sure, but it'd be a good practice to get into.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, no further discussion. We'll go to vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Passed unanimously. We'll move on to the integrated transportation master plan, the school zone. And it's for council consideration direction. I'll be honest with you, I've never read up on this one, so.
So we are in the midst of trying to finalize our integrated transportation master plan, which looks holistically at transportation corridors in the community. So active transportation, recreational vehicle transportation, motorized vehicle transportation, throughout all the systems and how those things interact with each other. One of the reasons this is coming up is because we have in Craig Star paved trail system, we have no automated or user enacted crossings, which can sometimes cause problems. We've had concerns about speed zones in the community and how to mitigate speeding in the community. Obviously, bylaw enforcement and RCMP enforcement can only go so far. So overall, the whole project will encompass a lot of, well, all of that stuff, and we'll have some, we're seeing some really great recommendations coming out of it so far. They're about to start the second consultation process to confirm what it is that what they've put into the project is what they heard originally. One of the areas that's most concerning and was brought forward by the DEA almost 2 years ago, I would say, was the crosswalk in front of JBT, which is a mid-block crosswalk, which are the most dangerous kinds of crosswalks, that people are speeding through the school zone. So there was a request for some changes to the traffic flow in that area. The consultant does not think it is prudent to put any more stop signs or change the traffic or the control of the intersections, but we are looking at specifically the recommendations are raised crosswalks with specialized paint marking on them, as well as a user activated lights on our signage. So we're not talking about installing a giant crosswalk. It will be blinkers on crosswalk signs that are adjacent to the roadway, as well as one of the things we wanted to explore that we think we can use throughout the community is the is a speed sign, a speed radar speed sign. So we can use that in the school zone, set it at 30 kilometers per hour. We could use it at on McDougall and set it at 40 kilometers per hour, and move it throughout the community, because what happens is we know that when people have, when signage is up and people see it every day, it means nothing. It sort of becomes like, I don't even know what color that house is that I just drove by, right? Or I don't know what color shirt the mayor's wearing today. I always know the color. But with those kinds of radar signs, because it moves throughout the community and it gives you a very active visual, they're more likely to support the mitigation of speeding in the community. So those are kind of the ways, the things from the report that we'd like to start actioning sooner rather than later, so we can try and get them done this season. Again, that will be entirely dependent on what is available. But we would be looking at doing the crosswalk at JBT, but also the crosswalk at PWK. Oh, sorry, and we do have $50,000 per year allocated in the current budget for implementation of the integrated transportation master plan. You'll see for some of our master plans, I've inserted some sort of placeholder monies, and then we will be seeking out other external funding to bring in some of the other recommendations that you'll see. Again, it's a phased program with priorities identified.
Thank you, Leslie. Councilor McDonald.
And then Councilor Crowell has a comment as well.
Okay.
Councilor McDonald's going first.
Okay, yeah, so I guess my first question would be, do these proposed changes to the 2 crosswalks fall within the $50,000 budget estimate? And, sorry, would that also include the speed radar sign?
SAO?
Yeah, so I have gotten a quote for the speed radar sign for less than $20,000. And there, we could potentially allocate, when we're doing the paving project, we do have contingency and some additional amounts built in. So we will likely be able to cover that. And then we're just looking at the others, flashing signs. So my hope is that signage would be covered by the $50,000, including the radar sign, and that we would be able to use some of the additional amounts from the paving project to do the raised crosswalks.
Thank you, SAO. Any further questions?
No, Councilor
Yes.
Carroll.
Okay.
I just have a comment regarding the raised crosswalks, which, I mean, are good in theory. However, the majority of time that those crosswalks will be used, they will be under snow. I don't see how totally effective they would be, given all the logistics with the snow, etc. I would be more inclined to see like flashing crosswalk signs that can be activated by the students and people crossing the street, in my opinion.
Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, no, this is a great project, and you know, it'd be great if we put in 50 annually for as long as we're here on this project. When I first came into office, it was probably about 3 weeks after I went to see the principal at the school there, and how do we fix this problem? There's a problem here. So I was aiming at getting these kids out like we used to do when we were kids, but because of unions, that could not be done. So, okay, what was the next fix? And we talked about these lights. It would be good to have lights, but I didn't know that it was already in last year's budget. It was coming. So, no, I totally support this. It's time that we move forward into this. And sometimes stop signs just don't cut it, and there's way too far stop signs. There's too much of them. But no, I'd like to see it start off there and then continue on to the other ones, and with that bright paint that I wanted. So yeah, no, I totally support this project.
Thank you for that, Mayor Daniels. Councilor McDonald?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think this might be a question for Mr. Grenier. So with the snow removal and the winter and the raised crosswalks, do you foresee that being any kind of a concern or an issue? And how we would deal with those, and is there potential problems that we maybe wouldn't be aware of at this time?
Thank you, Director Grenier, for giving us your time.
Yeah. No, I don't think there would be a problem. I think we scrape the roads down, we'd be aware of where they are located in the fall, and that we could definitely work with them.
Thank you for that response, Director. Councilor Kissinger?
Yes, just a question. I was thinking about the snow also, but the cost of putting in the flashing lights that the person pushes to cross the street, have you looked at the cost of putting that in?
Thank you, Councilor Kissinger. SAO?
No, we are still waiting on some quotes on that. And then we would be putting all of this out to tender, because most of this stuff would be able to be purchased by a local vendor. So we're just getting quotes from other distributors. I would suggest that from what I'm looking at, it doesn't even require being hardwired in. It's battery operated with solar, so we would be ensuring that the battery would be something that we would be able to manage in our rigid temperatures. The other thing is that, again, as I said, we have $50,000 per year that we have sitting in there as sort of almost a placeholder to do a bit of work every year. But we would be looking to be accessing, hopefully, the next time the active transportation funding from the federal government opens up for applications. Again, now we would have another shovel-ready project where we could go in and do exactly all the crosswalks, all the lighting issues, making sure that all the intersections are properly dealt with so that we're reducing any interactions, negative interactions, all the signage, and all of those sorts of things to ensure that our community is as safe as possible in our transportation networks. So you may want, if we are more than $50,000 after we put this out to tender, maybe that we just are drawing next year's $50,000 into this year's budget.
Thank you for that, SEO. And I think it's very important that we continue to try to make any area where our most vulnerable people are, our young children that are out there, make sure it's safe for them to get to point A to point B, which is basically across McDougall Road. Along with trying to remind people, I think it's very important to ensure that we continue with our speed monitoring programs, particularly our bylaw officer, get them out there and get tickets and things. It's mostly the same people that are zipping through there with their cell phone in their ear and not paying attention to our most vulnerable young people that cross those roads. I suppose this motion.
I move that the town of Fort Smith implement the recommendations to the changes to the PWK and JBT crosswalks as indicated in the Integrated Transportation Master Plan, as well as include the speed radar sign.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Can I second that? No. Can I get someone to second that, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilor Fisher. Any questions? I don't hear any. All in favor?
Yes.
Passed unanimously. The date of the next meeting, the next Municipal Service Standing Committee meeting will be held on July 5th, 2022 at 8:15. And if we can get someone to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have to excuse the councilors?
Oh, yeah. Can we get a motion to excuse the councilors?
I move that we excuse councilors Bolio, Ferguson, and Campo for this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Coral. Can we get a seconder on that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 9:30 p.m.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Councilor Coral.
Good job, folks.